Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, Ed, aka SavageTechman. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. Hello, everyone, and welcome to an exciting episode of the Geek Homeworld. I'm your host, Ed Ciucevich, and joining me once again, recovering from the sickness that gets us all this year. I've had it. I lost my voice for a bit a couple weeks ago. Scott Schreiber's joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
And we've got the sexy voice going on there.
Yes, the sickness has dropped the bass in our in our voice, but feeling a little better now.
All about the bass, about that bass. We're like Barry White,
right? I should be sick more often. Have this radio-friendly voice.
Hey, it's midnight hour. What are you doing? So, anyway, we're doing this episode strictly about Disney Plus.
Disney Plus.
Sickness has gotten us both from getting this out there. So after about a week,
it's good. It launched on November 12th, so we've had a week to see the problems and the triumphs of the streaming service. There are both.
Yeah. For me, just overall, I can almost overlook the weaknesses because, and we'll get into some.
No, I agree.
Detail.
There are issues, but they're minor. They are fixable. So yeah, and we'll get into. How about we do talk about those issues. The launch day was kind of disastrous.
There were
for
people,
the first 5 hours or so.
Right. I was one of those people, and I'm like, WTF, Disney. You know, I was on Twitter. I was like, I went and downloaded the app, which wasn't a good rollout on the app. They didn't say, hey, go and download the app.
Right. I expected maybe a week beforehand for them to contact subscribers and say, go ahead and do this or do that. And there was nothing. It was radio silence until launch day. And, when you have 10 million subscribers trying to get on at once, you're going to have issues. So I was pretty forgiving with that. I wasn't one of those that had to watch The Mandalorian right away. I mean, I wanted to, but, I could be patient and wait for 24 hours. And
yeah, that's you. That wasn't me.
But there were a lot of people trying to download at 6 a.m. and watching at 6 a.m. So, it did upset some people. They wanted to have their fix right away. And
I just thought about this, but I don't know if this is a plus or minus. I'm calling this a plus, but the fact Disney's programming is different, the frequency of when you get it, it's more episodic. Like The Mandalorian comes out every Friday.
Right, a weekly release instead of all at once.
I think that's smart. That keeps the hype going on it.
Sure.
So you can't binge it.
But and it keeps people from spoiling too. I'm sure there are going to be some spoilers, and I think there's enough time. Can we spoil? Well, we'll talk about Mandalorian a little bit. But
Disney officially said you can spoil at least the first. Well, there's been 2 episodes already.
Yeah.
We all know about. Well, we'll talk about the Mandalorian in a second, but
as far as those issues, they had them fixed by the end of the day. I know I was watching by that evening.
I was too. And I'm still a week later comparing it to Netflix, and it because 2 of my TVs are older TVs. They're not even smart TVs. They're not even relatively intelligent TVs at all. Yeah. And when I stream on the one here in the studio, it seems to load slower than when I stream from my phone to the television.
Disney Plus, that is.
Disney Plus.
It's slower than your other apps like Netflix.
Right. Now, it may be different. Like the Netflix app on the other television in the house here, it's the app's built into the TV, so it's like. When you stream from the app on the phone, it just seems like it's lightning quick.
Yeah. And again, I think that's something that will will improve over time.
Right. But it's not enough to say, okay, I'm done with Disney Plus. I'm hanging up my mouse ears because I wouldn't. So loading's a little slow at times, but I understand. And I'm surprised that the app didn't completely crash on opening day.
Yeah.
Because 10 million subscribers, and I saw this chart about, I think Netflix has about like 120 million or 60 to 120 million. I know that's a big range. I can't remember the numbers. But when you compare Disney Plus, it's a small blip compared to that. But day one, they had 10 million.
Right, and it'll only grow as their collection and their it expands.
And of course, the outrageously low pricing on it. We know that inevitably a year. How long is that deal for?
We got in on the 3-year deal.
I think I got in on 3 years. So
and that was like $4 a month. So
they could charge $20 a month, and I would say it was worth it. I don't know.
That may be a stretch.
But by then they'll have more content.
Yes,
and there'll be more films, and there'll be more of everything. But
I think the main issue that I'm having with it is the fact that you can't go and resume an episode where you left off, or there's not a section where you can have the continue watching. Like Netflix has your continue watching area. So if you're done with episode 1, it knows that you're going to episode 2 next.
Right.
Disney Plus does not have this function yet.
And they claim that they're working on that. And the minds at Disney can do it. I'm sure if Netflix can do it, Disney can do it better.
And I was just surprised that they didn't already have that function. Because, I think we left off in the middle of an episode and we're like, oh, we'll just come back later. And then we had to go find the episode again. And then when we hit play, it started from the beginning. There was no resume option.
I love the layout of the. Oh, we're talking minuses. Okay,
it's okay.
But I love the layout of it. The layout is very.
It is clear. They got clear subsections, and
like and like you have a thing for Pixar, for National.
Nat Geo, Star Wars, Marvel.
Yeah, so the stuff that I'm interested in, I can go straight to, and there's a lot of other things that like they put all the monster films that Disney have done in one, and like the evolution of Mickey or whatever. I can't remember what it's called. So, the aesthetics of it are pleasing.
Yeah, that works,
and they're intuitive. Everything seems to work well.
But then there are some issues with
The Simpsons,
with something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's The Simpsons. And with the aspect ratio, a lot of Simpsons fans are up in arms because the first 9 or 10 seasons were all 4:3. Aspect ratio,
because that's all that existed then.
Right, that's what existed then,
years ago.
And then I believe in season 10 they shifted to the 16:9. And so Disney launched with all of them in 16:9, and what you got in those early seasons were a lot of the sight gags, the jokes were cut off.
Like the Duff Beer one.
That was the one that got passed around a lot, where Duff Light and Duff Beer and Duff Gold are all coming from the same tube.
Yeah.
And so,
which is so true, probably.
Yeah, and those jokes like that are lost when you cut the aspect ratio. On The Simpsons, there's a lot of subtle jokes, and there's where you have to actually see it.
See this, it's like a sight gag.
Right, yeah, there's a lot of like signage, they do a lot of jokes on signs, and if the sign's cut off, you're not getting the joke. So, there's a lot of people up in arms about that. Disney's come out and said they will fix the problem in the new year, and I trust that they can do that. I mean, they've said that they'll just give you the option to watch it either or, whichever ratio you want.
And more than likely people will watch it in whatever aspect ratio works best for the particular episodes. Don't worry. There were some X-Men fans out there. They actually exist for the original series from the 90s, which is still the best incarnation of X-Men, truest to the comics. The X-Men series that ran from like 92 to 96. Of course, that last season or so, they switched animation houses, and it just kind of went off the rails there a little bit. Yeah. And but yeah, when you get about halfway through, because that series, there are some standalone kind of series, but it was actually a serialized thing because it did kind of lead in, and everything kind of tied in. So it was done well. But yeah, when you get to some of the later seasons, they were just completely out of order, and people lost their minds,
Chronological order.
Right, right. Like you might have the Phoenix Saga, and there might be a few things mixed up in it, like this episode is supposed to come that directly leads into the next one. And that can be a big problem. It's not a whiny little thing, and they're going to fix it.
Yeah, but for people that have never seen it and then are watching it and then it seems out of order, I mean...
That would mess you up. It's like watching... It's like if they put episode 4 on, left Empire out, and put like Attack of the Clones, Star Wars, and then then you had Return of the Jedi. I'm like, what?
Well, and that's an issue too of certain things that are missing from the platform.
Right.
Like going back to The Simpsons, there's a famous episode where Michael Jackson was on there. He wasn't allowed to sing. They got an impersonator to do the singing part. It's your happy birthday, Lisa. But the speaking part was Michael Jackson. But Disney has decided not to post that because of the controversy around Michael Jackson, which I think is kind of silly. I mean, it's still this is The Simpsons, and that's one of the most famous episodes too. So, a little disappointed that's not there.
And these are Fox.
Yes, yeah, that's a Fox
Disney
entity,
acquired.
And so that's also an issue I saw where there's a lot of Fox stuff that's not up there yet. And I mean, there may be still more deals to be had, or it may just be a strategic thing by Disney to roll out all the Fox products later. Because I mean, it just seems like there's only The Simpsons. Mm-hmm. I think maybe Avatar was 20th Century Fox.
Right, I believe so. Yeah,
and so there's only a handful of things from Fox right now that are up there. Which when they
and Fox has a lot of content, and this definitely feels like Disney family friendly. Obviously, the app is
the focus is definitely on Disney.
Yeah, it's Disney
Plus. and Nat Geo's getting a bump here. I think
big time.
Nat Geo's getting great exposure.
That's a great bonus to have that. There's so much great content on Nat Geo, and to be able to see it is wonderful.
We're also missing Last Jedi and Han, and
Solo film, which is probably best.
Well, it's still part of the canon,
and
I know. And they're on Netflix now, and I think they're working on the deal to switch them over. But,
Netflix, I'm sure they're going to fight back. I think Netflix will survive. I think, they're going to survive Disney Plus, but
as long as they have the great original programming,
right?
Like, because people love The Crown,
the wife and I were seeing season 3, and you're on season 2?
I'm almost done with 2 years behind, but
and I'm loving some stuff on there. I've already seen some memes that can pop up, and if I said what they were, it'd be spoiler warnings. But they still have a lot of great programming on Netflix, so I think they'll do just fine.
They may see a dip, but again, like as long as you're putting out new original programming that people dig, you're going to be successful. Going back to the Michael Jackson episode and kind of leading into something else, the Simpsons Michael Jackson episode is Disney Plus has made this effort to give warnings about outdated cultural.
And I don't know if that's a plus or a minus on that. I can. In the current climate, I understand. Now, Song of the South, there's some people that like that film, and it was controversial when it came out, and it's from a totally different era, different thinking. And
I think people are intelligent enough to know that, so it's like, but you have a different generation tuning in, so I get why they have to do that. Some things are offensive. The Lady and the Tramp, the Siamese Cat, that's a warning on there. What else? The Dumbo with the crows that are like one of one of the crows is named Jim Crow, I think.
Wow.
I mean, so it's like
I haven't seen Dumbo in a lot of years.
I think it was Dumbo, but anyway, there are definitely like at least 5 or 6 where they put that that warning up to say these can be seen as offensive, and I like that they've done that instead of taking them out completely.
That's a valid point because I would rather the content be available, and you as a parent, or you as, if you're watching with your child or whatever, or as an adult or whatever, you have that option to decide whether you want to watch that content or not. And I mean, we can look back at a lot of stuff, stuff that was done in the 80s, the 70s that, isn't cool now. And, you can pick anything apart with hindsight and say, oh, we shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have done that. And it's not fair because things are of the time they're made. And I like to think that people evolve and that our sensibilities and what we consider appropriate has evolved and is still evolving. So,
absolutely.
That's a good thing. There is one plus, a big plus. There is the ultra high definition 4K essentially that is available free of charge.
Yeah, so that we covered the issues we had with it, but I think there are enough positives here. And
because
the 4K is definitely a positive. Yeah. It's on select titles, but it's still they're not charging you extra.
Right, and Netflix is. And like Star Wars, even the sound is in Atmos sound, which is a highly evolved way of getting sound out. So people are seeing the original trilogy, especially of Star Wars, in the highest definition possible.
If you have
sound, if you have a 4K, I don't have a 4K, and it's like some stuff is filmed in 8K. The eye can't really tell the difference between 8K and 4K. When you get to 4K, the eye is like, really, it doesn't really matter to me.
Kind of doesn't make sense to do 8K, I don't think. But.
Well, there's nothing on there at 8K, but I know people that shoot that, and they just do it for fun because they can, but there's no practicality to it. But having that 4K option, I mean, just kind of built in, about future proofs it to an extent. So
I mean,
that's
I've
cool.
been able to watch The Mandalorian in 4K. So
and I wonder, and I have not actually watched any of the original Star Wars or anything that's in 4K that I'm aware of. I wonder if that's affecting any of the. Did you say Lady and the Tramp was 4K?
Yes, the new one is. Yeah.
So I didn't, even on my older TVs that are pre smart TVs. I didn't notice any disruption in the signal, but I wonder if loading them makes a difference. But I think that was just the app overall.
I haven't had any issues with Mandalorian.
Yeah, I've had 0 issues with Mandalorian, and I'm waiting for is that the transition?
That's the transition. Let's talk about it.
Thank you. Finally, something for Star Wars fans to feel good about and feel united about, even though there's a few that have found some things were impossible to please, and ask George Lucas.
And spoiler alert.
Oh, big time spoiler alert. But Disney has said their moratorium on the first 2 episodes, because they come on every Friday, has been lifted. So when we're recording this, it's after that time. So fantastic. Jon Favreau, first off, he writes he's written the series. I think it's 8 episodes to this.
I believe so, yeah.
And Dave Filoni, who is famous for his brilliant work with Clone Wars, he co-wrote the first episode and I think a couple of them down the road. So Favreau and Filoni,
they've knocked it out of the park, really. They've given us something to talk about.
It feels like a Western. It feels like original Star Wars.
Yeah. And this is set in between episodes 6 and 7, correct?
Correct.
Okay, between Empire and
right. And I think there's spoilers. I think there's spoilers that maybe this cute little guy at the end of is that episode 2 or was that episode 1? That was episode 1.
So we're and this is where we're really spoiler alert, which I think
if you've been on the internet, it's already spoiled.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody should know by now. There is a Baby Yoda, and
he has a name, and I saw it online, and I can't remember what it was, but it doesn't sound like a Yoda kind of name. But
well, they haven't given him the name in the
not in the show
series,
but somebody said online that they know what the name is. I don't know if that's true until I see it.
I found it fascinating. Well, first of all, Yoda was always my favorite character. So to see a baby version
of his race,
his species,
right? His species. That's
when we've only seen him, and there's another one on the Jedi Council, and I want to say,
true. Oh, very good.
So we've only seen 2 of his species, including him before,
right?
And nothing else. And
George
so there's
Lucas
there's this whole mystery about his species that we don't know. So that's a great jumping off point for this show. I love it.
I've already said this is the toy for Christmas. So if they don't have Baby Yodas out there, everybody wants a little Baby Yoda.
You gotta
We're going to call it
wonder
Baby Yoda until we know its name.
How much of that was marketing when they were writing? Like, what can we do to sell toys?
It almost looks like a puppet to me. I don't know if it's practical effects or if it's all CGI, but it's done well.
I would imagine it's no, I don't know. I would imagine it's CGI in nowadays, but it may be practical.
But I tell you, I mean, this is not going to erase all the problems with the mythos of Star Wars, and there's still issues, and we're less than a month away, or at best we're a month away from the debut of the end of the Star Wars 9 films, the Skywalker saga,
Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, and I've heard some horror stories that we've talked about on the podcast here, and until we see the final product, it's hard to say. But
right, I wouldn't put too much into that. I'm
like zero expectations. I'm trying to keep my expectations like in the negative zone. So anything good, remotely good, fan service or whatever, I'm going to be happy about the film. But I was more excited, like a lot of people, for The Mandalorian, and it's paid off. Yeah. And I've heard it said that simpler is better for Star Wars, and that's what Mandalorian is showing.
And it's got the tone right because it's comedic and dramatic at the same time. And the Nick Nolte, I can't remember the character, his buddy that teaches him to ride the. And I have spoken. I mean, that stuff's great.
Gosh, people will kill me for this, but is it IG? It's not IG-88, is it? I can't remember. Whatever that robot is.
The pilot.
Yeah, and he's like
voiced by Taika Waititi. Did you know that?
Yes, brilliantly. And he's like, I will self-destruct now. That would be me.
That was so great. Yeah.
I love that. It's like, I will self-destruct. No, they can't get my tail. I will self-destruct. No.
No. And then you get in the second episode, you get the moment of Baby Yoda using the Force, and it's just, wow.
That's so cool. And it's funny because you kind of, during that episode, I was like, okay, this is Baby Yoda, who's 50 years old because his species ages differently, so he looks good for 50.
Right, that was a good twist because in the pilot they're saying, "No, you're looking for a 50-year-old," and comes across a baby, but.
and the cutest baby, and then he sees the Mandalorian who barely speaks, and so far he hasn't had the actors great,
We haven't seen his face yet.
Yeah,
but it is for those that don't know, it's Pedro Pascal who played the Viper on Game of Thrones, who got his skull crushed in.
Right. So let's hope that doesn't happen. I don't think that's going to happen with him, but I don't mind that he's not Boba Fett. This isn't the Boba Fett series. I'm not.
Which I missed it, but from what I read afterwards, Boba Fett is in the background in the pilot. And I'm going to have to go back. I did see a screen
capture of that. Now that you mentioned it. But that's cool. I'm fine with. I love everything about this. I can't wait for Fridays now.
I know, right?
I mean, it's must-see TV for me, and so far so good. I mean, it could go off the rails, but I don't think it's going to. I think this is, and they're already getting ready for filming and planning and filming the second season already. So, so of course, been greenlit. So Disney needs a win. Star Wars, especially in the universe, needs a win, and this is definitely a big win. And there's, fans are clamoring for a Mandalorian film. So I don't know.
I mean, yeah,
These are shot kind of like a film, and they're taking about roughly $25 million per episode. So, it's about $150, maybe $200 million production, maybe, give or take.
Yeah, I don't know if they should move over to a film.
I like it where it's at, and I think it's an anchor for me in for Disney Plus. It was a big draw, and
it's easily the best of their original programming.
Yes.
Their other original programs are pretty good. Some kind of fall flat, but
Noel.
Well, I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm probably going to
reviews
like
are not
it.
great.
There's some reviews there said there's the one part, I know John Campia was talking about this. There's one scene that'll make you cry and just really touch you, but the rest of it he did not like whatsoever. So I'll be the judge of that when I see it. But
so that one, I mean, and it could be, because if you're in the Christmas mood, it could be good enough.
Right. And that's what I'm thinking as we get closer to Christmas. I'm going to watch it, and then it's probably going to put me in a good, warm kind of feeling, and I'm going to say, oh, that was pretty good, even.
But its other original movie, and I say original, but it's a remake, but is that I thought was fantastic, and maybe it's because I was got to be a part of it, and it was filmed here in Savannah. Was The Lady and the Tramp live action remake.
I loved it.
I did too. I thought it was really well done. The talking dogs seemed more realistic. I mean, for talking animals, it seemed the visual effects were much more fluid, I thought, than Lion King.
I wholeheartedly agree on that. Yeah, they did such a believable job of it, and there is a little. The visuals were great, but we talk about it's a little unrealistic. If we want to be real about this, it is a little unrealistic. The characters with their ethnicities,
yes,
Disney, in that time period.
I think that's the issue, is the time period, and I think some critics are probably giving it a hard time for that too, because it's set in the 40s or whatever, and
maybe sooner.
30s, 40s, maybe 20s.
20s to 40s, maybe. I don't know.
But anyway, for the time period,
right.
A mixed race couple probably isn't that realistic. Business owners that are black or Hispanic or Indian, maybe not that realistic. But I think that the point is this is for a new generation, and that if this new generation sees this, this mixed ethnicity where everybody's included, it is a positive. So I think that needs to be drawn from this, not saying that it's unrealistic.
I don't really have an issue with it whatsoever. In fact, for the reasons you pointed out there, it makes total sense. And we also have to remember that this is it's a series about talking dogs, so anything's possible. And
it's also a story about inclusiveness. I think that you can.
That's true. And the underdog, no pun intended.
Right. I mean and you could even say a little bit that Tramp and the street dogs are equivalent to the way that immigrants are being treated. The unfair, the unfairness of them being locked up, and the whole thing with DACA and all that. I think there are some parallels. Disney's been known to put a little politics into their films.
A little, but it doesn't beat you over the head with it. It's not
right,
and it doesn't need to be part of the. Because it's there, but that's fine.
Those are things that I thought about well after it. I'm not thinking about it during the movie.
When I was watching it, and we're both from, I'm originally from Savannah, so to see snow in Savannah on screen is a rarity anyway. That's the only time, mainly the only
it's
time.
Happened.
It's happened. It's happened a few times in my lifetime and been fantastic. But yeah, I love Lady and the Tramp, and I
thought it was well done. Just seeing, and especially living in Savannah,
and it gives you that warm feeling.
Absolutely.
And
and they
it's
did
Disney
make
magic.
They did make some changes from the original to be more culturally sensitive. They took out the Siamese cat song and replaced it. There were some applause there after in the screening I saw.
Please no Beyonce, because like her part in The Lion King ruined that for me.
I agree. Beyonce kind of dragged down Lion King.
Yeah.
But Janelle Monáe has a great song when they're in the pound. Talking about singing about Tramp, and there were applause in the screening there for that one too.
Was it? Yeah, because you got to go to the screening.
Yeah, I went to a cruise screening of that. That was fantastic to be in a room with people that worked on it and just people that are from Savannah. So being able to see Savannah, represented so well. Like every frame of this film is shot here in Savannah, so it was just cool to see the cathedral in that opening shot, or when after they have the spaghetti scene, they go into Forsyth Park, and I mean, just to see those iconic places.
The big cathedral downtown. I was literally a block away from that at the studio doing my radio show, Savannah on Film, and I could see how they brilliantly had snow everywhere. It looked like snow, and and then the next day it was all back to normal. And I'm like,
shout out to special effects, Bruno's special effects team. They did a great job.
Yeah, it's love Landing and Tramp. So another win for me for Disney. Encore. Moving on to
I
have not seen.
Moving on to more of their original series now, because I think those were the only two the original movies they have so far.
What's it about generally?
Encore?
Yeah.
It's hosted by Kristen Bell, although she's got minimal.
She's fantastic.
She is fantastic, but she only shows up at the beginning and the end. But it's basically they take these high school troupe or these musicals that this group of people that were in high school together, they did many years ago. They reunite all those people 20 years later or whatever.
Getting the band back together.
And then put on that same show. Uh-huh. So the premise is interesting. I've only watched the first one, and it was Annie. It was the musical Annie. The second one is Beauty and the Beast. I think that one might be a little better. The first one, for me, kind of fell flat on the promise. I didn't find the stories that interesting of these people, but that doesn't mean it can't be interesting moving down the line.
Right.
But I think it's an interesting idea. People will dig the musical aspect of it, because the next one, I mean, everybody knows Beauty and the Beast in its song.
Beauty and the Beast. I enjoyed the film, by the way, the live version.
Yeah, the new one.
Some people didn't. Yeah. It was one of my favorites of the ones they redid.
But I do think that show has promise. I haven't seen High School Musical series yet. I think that one is geared towards a younger audience.
Yeah, people that grew up with that, I'm sure love it. It's probably like Saved by the Bell,
Yeah, right.
So I don't know.
But then you get into the more thought-provoking ones. I think The World According to Jeff Goldblum was pretty interesting. He's an interesting guy, and his show's about mundane items. Like the first one's about sneakers,
And
but
people say he's
interesting.
crazier in person. Well, not crazy. I don't mean crazy in a bad way, but I mean he's eccentric, I guess, or whatever the word is. Even more so in real life. So this is a peek into his world,
right? And I think that could be great down, as it goes. In the Imagineering story about that's another interesting series about the masterminds behind the theme parks, Disney theme parks.
I haven't seen that one yet. There's still a lot. I've been ill, so I plan to binge watch some stuff on Disney. That's one thing I didn't mention about The Mandalorian. I like the fact that it's coming out. It's weekly. You
did
can't
mention
stream
that.
it. I did mention that.
You did.
I wasn't sure if we were recording yet. Okay.
Yeah, we were recording.
Okay.
But no, that's a great point too. Though, yes, it is. It does keep people's interest and from week to week instead of binging it all and spoiling it all for everybody.
Right, and then it's gone and it's out of I can think of different things like Birdhouse when it came out. Everybody watched it, and I was the last person to see it.
Bird Box.
Oh, they changed it? Okay. I love when KFC had a thing on there about it. The original
Birdhouse, man. That movie.
Oh, Birdhouse. That is Robin Williams and...
No, that's Birdcage.
I loved Birdcage. It was.
I loved Birdhouse. I want to see this movie, Birdhouse.
No, what?
There's no Birdhouse.
There's no Birdhouse. We're gonna make it. Okay, I don't know. Anyway, let's keep moving on.
Next show was Uncharted. Gordon Ramsay's Uncharted on Nat Geo. I watched the first episode where he goes to Peru, and it's really interesting.
Insults the population there.
He's actually very gracious in this. He's gonna go around to different cultures and learn, about their eating habits and their cuisine. And the first one was pretty interesting. He went to Peru, and
right.
I see promise with this. This is basically him continuing what Anthony Bourdain was doing.
And I want to see this because I love Gordon Ramsay, and I just think this could be very interesting.
And yeah, I think that this is great for Nat Geo. They already have some great programming, and it's all up there now. If you haven't seen them, their documentaries are up there. If you still haven't seen Free Solo, that is up there.
Day one that popped up on one of my little scrolling things on there. And I actually didn't see it. Yeah,
so that needs to be your next one. You check out on Disney Plus, and then there's a great documentary about Jane Goodall on there as well. So.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh, I saw. I guess it would have been in the IMAX back in the day with her, and it's fascinating the work that she did.
But I think the most exciting thing, other than Mandalorian as far as original programming, is what's coming next for Disney, and that's the Marvel shows and the Star Wars shows.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and they're rumored to be, I think, $25 million per episode, and I could be wrong on that. So we're looking at a 6-episode arc on each of these shows, like
the Marvel.
Yeah, the Marvel, the MCU film, or I'm sorry, shows.
And they're going all in on this too, because these are part of the MCU. So if you want to understand what the movies,
Loki is going to lead right into, whatever comes afterwards. WandaVision obviously is going to lead into Doctor Strange, where she appears in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness on the big screen.
Yeah, cool.
And, I'm wondering this, and this might be a topic for later. Black Widow's getting a film.
Yes, okay. and I think there's only 2 Marvel movies set to be released next year, and Black Widow is one of them.
And
I think the Eternals.
The Eternals
is the other.
Because we're going to get more space age, and we're going to go towards. I think we're heading towards Galactus, and some other. Like King the Conqueror, who's a time traveler and stuff. I could see how they could totally bring that in, but that's a discussion for another day. But I almost think that maybe the Black Widow film, I don't see it being $1 billion draw right now. I want to see I've always wanted to see a Black Widow film, and I love Scarlett Johansson. I just wonder if maybe it's better suited to be on Disney Plus. But
I don't know. I mean, Scarlett is a box office draw.
Even though she's had some bombs, though. I mean, when they didn't get Ghost in the Shell right, and
that's not her fault.
And that's casting. Yeah,
she did a great. I thought she was fantastic in it,
but she was not the right.
But there was the uproar that she wasn't Asian. Yeah,
yeah, and I can understand that side of it, on that, but not to go too far off script. So these MCU films or shows, I got to get that in my head. You don't have to have Disney. You have to have Disney Plus to see them.
Yeah.
And we're not saying Disney's not saying you need to get Disney Plus. They want you to get Disney Plus, but you kind of need it if you're gonna, walk into the films in Phase 4 and Phase 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're gonna want them. We want to know what happens to Loki after Endgame. And it was just announced that Robert Downey Jr. will return to the MCU in the What If series, which is an animated series. He'll do a voiceover.
I forgot about that one, yeah.
And that's going to, I've always loved, like when collecting comics, I always loved the What If. What if, or like the storylines, like Quantum Leap and stuff like that, and different things like, what if JFK was never assassinated? What would happen? What if, like Watchmen, that alternate kind of universe, where Reagan gets a 3rd or 4th term, or not Reagan, the other guy.
Robert Redford.
Yeah, Robert Redford in the series, and that's a different
we'll have to talk about the Watchmen series, but like the Watchmen movie was, different universe. And, I love those kind of what ifs. Like one of them is going to be, what if Peggy Carter got the super soldier serum and Chris Evans' character she became Captain America, and then he became Iron Man, which is, fascinating. So that I'm excited for that one. Mm-hmm. But anyway, moving on to a topic we love to talk about because it's so divisive. No, the Star Wars universe. Before George Lucas turned over the films, he reworked the Han versus Greedo. Who shot first? When we know it's in the original adaptation of Star Wars, A New Hope, before it was A New Hope, episode 4 or whatever. Yeah. When it was just Star Wars, Han shot first. Well, then, there's people that have the Han shot first. And then when he redid in, I think, 97, did the special editions, Greedo shot first. And then, so to kind of fix it or mess with people before, and we didn't know this until Disney Plus, that he puts in something where Greedo says at the end of their exchange, and they both shoot at the same time. And he says something like McClucky or McClurkin, and nobody knows what that means. And I think that translates to Jar Jar Binks. I think that's just George sticking it to the fans in a fun way. But 4K, physical media. This is something that the days of physical media, buying a DVD or a Blu-ray, and there's collectors out there. I was one of them, and I've kind of stopped doing that a few years back.
I have to an extent. I've been an avid Blu-ray DVD collector for years, and I've been a lot more selective recently, knowing that I can have these on certain streaming sites. I still collect Best Picture nominees. I still collect Disney and Marvel.
And
so
I understand that.
Now
That's what I would do.
Well, I now have to take this having Disney Plus into consideration now. Am I now going to buy everything on DVD just to have it on my shelf? I mean, it's a question now. I don't know if I will.
It's easier to print the picture out from online somewhere.
Yeah, right.
to snap a photo of it in the store and put it on the shelf. Look at my collection.
But I used to pump a lot of money into that business.
But the days of physical media
they're vanishing.
Yeah, they're on a sharp decline the last couple of years, especially. And honestly, it's if you think about it, and I can't take credit for this. John Campea did say this, and I'm not trying to be a John Campea fan here, or not be a John Campea fan, but he said, I'm going to a friend's house or whatever, and but I forgot my DVD, so now I got to go back to the house and get the DVD, or it's ruined the night. Yeah. We can't watch the film, but now I've got my streaming service, whatever it is, Amazon, Netflix, HBO Max, whatever, Disney Plus, obviously, and we can just stream it on their television.
Right, and I'm even buying like on Vudu, if they have deals for just the digital copy, I've been doing that instead, and it's just the way things are going.
Your Disney Plus stuff is going to stay there no matter. It's future proof, which is a good thing. So it's always going to be out there. But it's a question that we can answer on another episode when we have time. I want to talk about, what happened. I think we get to a point where we don't own anything. We're getting to a point where we just pull it out of the cloud through your app or whatever. And I used to be like, oh, that's terrible. But I'm like, you know what? It's easy. You don't have to have all this stuff around.
Certainly a space saver.
It is a space saver, especially if you've got a significant other that says, where are you going to put more Star Wars stuff, Ed? So I don't know, but one of the things is there's a couple of things I want to mention here, and this is a Star Wars thing and Avengers Endgame thing too. But mainly Star Wars is in this 4K. So you're hearing it in the Atmos sound. You're hearing it the best and seeing it in the best possible way. Even if you bought the Blu-rays like I did and DVDs and everything else before that of Star Wars films, you're getting the best version of them streaming, assuming you have a 4K capable television.
And it's only select items. I think
It is select
I think
items.
it's the newer ones.
Yeah, Avengers Endgame falls in that. It's like they have a section in the app here which is called Ultra, and Ultra HD and HDR, and Avengers Endgame, Mandalorian, Forky, the Forky one I want to go see.
So it does have some of the older ones, Little Mermaids in
Yeah.
4K, Moana. So they do have
Yeah,
a decent amount of the older ones. Okay, all the
Lady
Star
and the
Wars.
Tramp, yeah,
All the Star Wars are on there in 4K.
Encore, Rogue One. So,
So that's great. Yeah.
yeah, and now Avengers Endgame. I want to talk about that because some people got upset. You know, you had the version of the being re-released and all that, which was really a cash grab to get over the certain box office number, which Avengers Endgame did. But the few scenes they added, there are more scenes that showed up that we didn't know about, and some were theorized, like with Tony and his daughter and stuff like that. We actually physically got to see. There was a different version of an Avengers Endgame of Tilda Swinton, like sitting in a lawn chair or something with shades on and talking to the Hulk, versus the version that we saw, which was better.
Yeah,
And,
instead of with him,
you know, she kind of like knocks his astral projection or self, or separates Banner from
and
Hulk.
talks to Banner
Instead of talking to Hulk, and
Yeah.
and so, but that makes you think, and this is another point that we can probably discuss later, but I just want to touch on it. You could essentially have an infinite amount of these films. Don't have to, like someone like George Lucas that thinks it's never done. There's always room for improvement, and he adds stuff and he does these special editions. I could see where all they got to do is update the library of, you know, Avengers Endgame and add another scene, assuming there's, you know, other scenes or something, or they could digitally do something, you know, and add it to it, and they can keep doing that, you know. So it's like the film may never be done, you know, which is a precipice that, you know. Is it a snapshot of time, that creativity, which I'm of that camp, but I'm also, you know, show me some extra stuff sometimes is a good thing too. But yeah, some people are complaining about the extra scenes that were added, and they had the Blu-ray, whatever version, they had the Infinity Saga version of all the Blu-rays, but yet these scenes aren't on the Avengers Endgame one.
Yeah.
But now they show up on the streaming service. And so, you know, there's also a talk, will Disney eventually stop putting movies out and just everything on Disney
in
Plus?
physical form?
Right. Yeah. Well, even to the theaters, will they?
Well,
I don't think they won't.
I don't think they'll stop either, because you make money.
Yeah, you're not going to make $1 billion off of Disney Plus,
and there's going to be
the
older generation that doesn't want to go to streaming that will still buy physical copies.
And not everybody has a really equivalent 4K whatever projection in their house, or, you know, their TV or whatever, or the proper surround sound, you know. So it's
who can afford all of these streaming services? That's the problem we're going to get into.
That's another discussion too, that, you know, we've got all these, you know,
Apple Plus is about to launch,
HBO Max, which has got like a Friends. Anybody who liked the show Friends,
which I'm
doing like a reunion.
I'm confused about the HBO, but anyway.
We're already paying for HBO. It's already premium. Now we've got Max. I'm like, so this is premium Max plus? I don't know.
And just a quick note on the Friends thing, they would be much smarter to release that in the theaters.
Yeah,
do a reunion movie, and that would make so much money.
Yeah, that's what they should do. And but I don't know. One of the other things that I like, the Pixar shorts or whatever, they have a whole selection of those.
I think when you're, we'll end here talking about the catalog, and the navigation of the app is it's easy, but the catalog is fantastic. You know, yes, I could go look at my shelf and see a lot of these Disney and Marvel and all these movies already on my shelf, but not these shorts, not these animated series. There's a lot of more obscure stuff that you don't even think about. But all the Pixar shorts, and I mean, it's fantastic. All
There's,
the stuff
there. Just to do a search within the app, I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember that. Or, oh, I need to see that again. I hadn't seen that since I was a kid. They're Robin Hood. All these different ones.
Sword and Stone. Yeah.
Yeah. Black Cauldron. Hunchback of Notre Dame. These great animated films that they made, and you get to see like Aladdin. The Robin Williams one. You get to see all this wonderful content, and
and you forget about like a lot of the live action movies they did too. It's like
Swiss Family Robinson and stuff like that. Yeah, that I grew up on, and it'll be great to go back. When I'm in the mood to watch something like that, it's there, and so there's a lot of different flavors of Disney Plus out there that I think anybody can enjoy. Final thoughts on Disney Plus.
I think it's worth the $7 a month, especially if you don't have a lot of these on DVD already.
Or you didn't get the ESPN / what's the other thing?
The bundle Hulu
with Hulu, which I didn't get because I didn't see enough.
I think Hulu it would be worth it if you didn't have any of them to begin with. Like I already had Hulu. I've got enough sports on my cable package, so it just didn't make
I've got sports on my cable package, and we're we want to cut the cord, but there's still stuff that's not on Disney Plus. If they could get one service, like we were talking a little bit earlier, if we could put all the Amazon Prime and everything under one umbrella somehow, and
that would be great, because I'm coming to the point at the end of the year. I've got to decide whether I want to re-up on my Amazon Prime, and it's just like, is it going to be worth it? And I mean, I love some of the programming on Prime.
And now NBC is coming out with Peacock, which is a terrible name, but I get it.
Well, those are the ones I refuse to. CBS, no, thank you. Networks, you are networks for, like, I mean, you're supposed to be accessible to everybody. Right. Even people that still use an antenna to watch TV get CBS and NBC. So to make us pay extra for programming is just insane.
And some of it's been hit and miss with the fan base. So Star Trek Discovery. Anyway, so that's all I got on this one. So I think we ended here.
Yeah, I think we covered everything there. I think it is a worthwhile platform, and with some issues, but minor. Yeah, but I think
it far outweighs.
The positives outweigh.
The positives definitely outweigh anything bad about this. And if in 3 years it's $20, I'll probably complain a little bit, but by then there'll be so much content. All the Phase 4 stuff, well, probably not, will be on there. But I'm already getting satisfaction out of having Disney Plus, and so it hasn't let me down yet, other than the connection problems. But that's in the past.
Yeah,
so
go get your Baby Yoda stocking stuffer.
I know. I was like, that's the toy for Christmas, and oh my gosh, too cute. Anyway, all right. Well, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast. I'm Ed Ciucevich, along with
Scott Schreiber.
And thank you very much, Scott, for braving the sickness and down with the sickness.
That's right. Not a problem.
And joining us here. All right. We'll talk to you later. Thanks. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld with your host, SavageTechman. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+, follow and interact with us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, listen to us on iTunes and leave a review, subscribe to us on YouTube, read our thoughts on Blogger. See you again on the Geek Homeworld.